Why not the ending? Part 1 down in the comments. Last night went reasonably under the circumstances. I did not follow the playbook exactly, but I think I did some positive things. When I got home last night, my wife had a long handwritten letter for me. It showed some ownership and remorse for having caused me pain, not yet to the point of admitting how, and some explanations on why she has behaved in certain ways toward me during our conflict. She also expressed, again, the fear of what kind of person it makes her if all that I have accused her of is true. In other words, she is not able to accept the meaning of what she has done, and the guilt, shame that will come with it. There wasn't a real bottom line in her letter, but she was at least attempting to reach out and be a little bit open. So, after the kids were in bed, the science fair project is finally done. I sat her down and explained a few things to her. I have a right to be happy, have my own needs, and to have a rewarding marriage. I don't have to give up my happiness to provide for others. There are some basic, minimal expectations that I have for a wife: loyalty, respect, honesty, putting me above all others, etc. I stated that I didn't have these things now, and unless both parties were committed to the marriage, we didn't have a real marriage anyway. I stated that I was no longer going to put up with the disrespect, disloyalty, and dishonesty. I reiterated that her first choice was full NC or we divorce. I am not going to support her in my house while she carries on with another man. Her second choice is whether she wants to reconcile with me or not. She was calm and rational through all of this and was again able to show remorse for having made mistakes and hurting me. I then told her I had reconsidered my agreement for a fully private farewell. This started a lengthy discussion which was also calm and rational for a while. She revealed that she did not FaceTime with other man yesterday, which I have since verified per VAR, but has arranged to talk on Thursday. I expressed why I thought this was a bad idea. She explained that she felt she owed other man a face-to-face explanation and that she wants some degree of closure. And obviously, she wants to feel like she has some degree of control in a situation where she feels I am being very controlling. Given her demeanor at the time, I did not feel she was truly trying to play me. So, I suggested that she could have her FT and then follow it up with the NC letter with my approval. At this point, the conversation and her demeanor changed. The WS monster showed up. It turns out that her version of NC was no contact for some indeterminate amount of time and that there was hope that one day she could have at least some limited degree of contact with the right controls in place. I think the plan to implement this version of NC was also part of the demand a private goodbye. She eventually tried to demand to be allowed to at least open some window of opportunity for contact in the future. I was ready for her this time. I told her point blank that this was totally unacceptable. Anger and tears followed. I held to this line and made it clear that total NC was the only option. Eventually, my resolve on this sunk in and she agreed to the terms. I am going to allow her to FT Thursday. She can't today because our kids are out of school before other man is home from work. She will then send a NC letter and hand over passwords. I know that most will not agree to allow the FT call, but I am okay with it as long as the end result is there and I have a way to verify that she makes it clear to him that there can't be any more contact. She may tell him of her feelings directly, she may blame me for everything, and she may try to pry out any feelings from him, but she could have been doing things these anytime she chose. As I'll be able to record the chat, I will know her intentions. She'll get to have a little victory, but I'll still get what I need. The conversation continued after that as we ran into the rug sweeping factor. Somewhere along the way I made a comment about her lying to my face, and she tried to play hurt and offended. She then said she wasn't going to be able to go forward if she was going to be repeatedly bombarded with accusations. She needs to start with a clean slate. I told her that that was not possible if we are to reconcile. And at some point, to some degree, she's going to have to own up to what exactly she has done. At this point she went back in minimizing the emotional affair mode. I was eventually able to cut off this line of thought and explain that the focus is on what action is needed immediately full NC. Everything else is down the road. So, maybe I did things a bit differently than recommended, and tolerated more conversation than was needed, but I believe that the NC message was forcefully delivered. She has given every indication that she wants to stay together and work on things. While she is hurting and conflicted right now, she seems to understand where I am coming from. She's not ready to admit anything new yet, but I'll have to patient on that. While she has agreed to meet my ultimatum for NC, she has yet to acknowledge that the level of relationship has been inappropriate. At one point last night, she blamed the issue on me not be able to relate as I don't have a separate best friend, confidant relationship outside of her. I told her the issue wasn't about my friends. I hope she can eventually get the idea. As for MC, I like talking to our counselor, who is really a psychologist who has a portion of her work with couples. But she is not the type that will give instructions on what to do. Her thing is to help each person understand the other's perspective, which was zero help for stopping an emotional affair. She seems to understand emotional affairs, but, until now, She has been really slow to view my wife's relationship as an emotional affair. I hear what you are saying, that it is not appropriate to have conversations with OSF that you wouldn't have in front of your spouse. But my wife has been living in that environment for so long. I am not too concerned about one more inappropriate conversation. I don't see how it will change anything, short of something drastic like her deciding to leave me. If I were in her position, which she shouldn't have been in the first place, I would want to have a final chat before signing off on the relationship. While it doesn't make it right, and certainly doesn't give me a warm fuzzy, I can understand the possibility of genuine, like no planned deceits, interest in a verbal goodbye and a desire to honor the other person. 2 decades ago, other man just simply stopped writing. That was his way of saying goodbye. I think my wife is sensitive by this history. I realize that I am taking a risk, but my gut tells me that my wife isn't planning anything drastic. The fact that I should be able to capture the conversation helps reduce the risk. Days later, last night was a turning point. Everything seemed pretty normal in the evening, except that my wife was conveniently on the phone right after the kids got in bed, which seemed to me to be an attempt to avoid talking to me. After that, I handed some reading material to my wife that I suggested she should look at before the final chat with other man. I gave her a couple of good articles explaining emotional affairs, a few example NC letters, a list of what should be on a NC letter. Well, things got ugly after that. Her WS monster came out in full force. I now at least recognize her mannerisms when she is in emotional affair. BS mode, trying to defend, minimize, push back, gaslight, etc. She did, what I gather is, the stereotypical WS throw everything at me fit. She claimed I was changing things from what I said yesterday, that I was controlling, that she didn't know if she could stay with me if this kind of unilateral behavior continued, that she's afraid that she'll never be able to tell me enough details to satisfy me, that this all started with me obsessing, that she now wants a third-party arbitrator. This was the most repetitive comment. Oh my God, she turned into a lunatic. I have never seen her behave in this manner. At one point in the discussion, I was really ready to go straight to a D lawyer's office. The question of why do I want to stay with this person really sunk it. It is amazing what an EA can do to an otherwise rational and loving person. I somehow thought she was different, or at least not as addicted as you all indicated. She has done a masterful job of acting pretty normal throughout the last couple years. I knew it was an EA, but she had me fooled on how deeply entangled she really is. I kept coming back to 2 points with her. First, the priority is full NC and nothing else matters until that is done. Second, if she wants to stay married, then she better start acting like it. She had told me earlier in the evening that she had sent a short email to other man about FT tomorrow, which was confusing because I thought she had already done that. So, I called her on it and said, show me the email. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, she acted like it was the end of the world. I didn't relent and she finally logged in and showed me the email, which turned out to be exactly what she said it was. Of course, any other emails with other men were erased already. Then I told her that she needed to do the NC letter immediately. Amazingly, after a little huffing and puffing, she sat down and wrote a good NC email based on the examples I showed her. I hit the send button. She followed that up with providing her email account passwords. I verified the passwords and implemented some user restrictions. She won't be doing any FaceTiming for a while. The other primary restriction was to prevent adding email accounts to her Apple devices. She can still use webmail, but that is much easier to track by analyzing backup files from iTunes. If she starts using another account on one of her devices, I'll find it. I'm not sure what to make of her behavior afterwards. She stopped being angry, and she wasn't crying over the sudden closure with other man. Don't know if she was just stunned, or if she just hasn't given up yet. The NC letter was a start, but it became really clear how long of a process this will be. A couple of other questions. Do I talk to BF to see which side of the fence she is on? If she sees it as an emotional affair, she could be very helpful. Do I try to get the password for the new email account? Should I also contact other man to be clear about the consequences of further contact? She will see emotional affair articles as saying she is wrong, bad. So, I'm not holding out much hope that they will clarify anything for her. Enforcing boundaries will be a good start, but I am eventually going to need to hear from her mouth some of the things she has done. Hid this, lied about that, felt this way. Before reconciliation will be possible. Right now, she admits she caused me pain, nothing beyond that. The third-party ploy was almost comical, really. She was just desperately trying to find a way to change my mind. I am not bothered by the controlling comments, or any of the other rationalizations and accusations. She is full of BS at the moment. I can understand lying desperately if a WS is trying to continue the affair. But once the plug is pulled on the affair, does some form of normal thinking and honesty return eventually? I can forgive the affair, but it is the constant denial and lying about it that is intolerable. Wish I knew when it would end. The alternating pattern is starting to show already. Yesterday she wrote me a nice note where she was applying for the job of being wife again, conceded the need for a probation period, and asking what I needed from her on a daily basis. In other words, lots of nice-sounding things about wanting to work on things and acknowledging, in a vague way, that she hasn't been doing a good job. I would really like to believe that she is sincere. Last night, she and BF were texting and I noticed that my wife deleted a few messages. I saw the word paranoid in a message from BF. I had the VAR on yesterday and just listened to a conversation between W and BF which I believe was entirely about trying to determine if there is an app on her iPhone. I think BF was doing some research for my W. Don't know if this is an indication that she wants to know what she can get away with, like planning to contact other man, or if W thinks that me monitoring her behavior is a breaking point for her. Hard to say whether her objection to be monitored is on principle or just trying to protect her secrets. I'm sure my wife realizes that I know more than what she has told me since I am 100% sure of her having an emotional affair. Perhaps she is trying to figure out my sources of info. Ironically, at the moment I do not have anything loaded on her devices. In any case, it doesn't give me reassurance that she is truly prepared for full NC and to work on the marriage. In her note from yesterday, she opened with wanting some reassurance that I wanted to still be in the marriage. Apparently, I didn't give a very convincing answer during our fight the other night. Of course, right now, I am really not sure. I guess I need to convince myself that her true personality will eventually win out when the fog lifts. Tonight, I am going to write down for her the terms for NC to make sure she understands what the consequences are for any deceit on her part. D. Deleting texts is not going to be on the OK list. I will also make it clear that if BF is helping hide things, I'm not going to be okay with BF. We have an app to go back to our MC on Monday. This was at my wife's insistence. My wife was actually playing the boundaries card the other night as she thinks I am crossing boundaries by wanting to see what she is doing and saying. BS, I contacted a different MC, which I got a referral to from a sub-abuse place but wasn't able to interview her yet. We'll see what our current MC says on Monday. My wife indicated that she may want to go on her own. As for me, I'm not sure how to act at home right now. I am angry and distrustful and don't know what to think of W right now. On the other hand, if I show that I am angry, it will probably make things worse. W has not expressed much interest in going to see MC. Right now, I think is clinging to two things that MC mentioned early on. MC indicated, for affairs in general, that disclosure about the affair by the WS not required. MC has also indicated snooping is discouraged. Right now, I think W is hoping that MC will say that she won't have to talk about the affair, and that I should not be spying on W. W's biggest argument now is about how much oversight I need to have on her activities. I'm thinking it is not good if W goes by herself at this point. I will see what the MC number 2 says about her approach, experience with affair busting. I am going to pursue working on myself and my life. I have a choice and will move forward with or without her. I also think that there is benefited to showing her hope for the marriage and showing that I can improve as a husband. I'm not sure how to simultaneously show her how good things could be and that I could choose not to go forward with her. Have to think on this one some more. Maybe I don't have to show her anything positive until she seems to get the message that I might not choose to stay with her unless she changes her behavior. Right now, she hasn't shown me enough for me to want to make progress as a husband. Ironically, when all of this started and I wasn't as sure it was an emotional affair, I used the discovery as a wake-up call and really stepped up as a husband. For a couple of months, I was really all in and doing everything I could to meet her needs. She loved it. Of course, she wasn't backing away from other men and now she had 2 attentive males. Anyway, it shouldn't be too hard for her to remember what I'm capable of. At a certain point, my wife will have to make a definitive choice about whether to open up about what has happened and try to make me as her top priority, or to continue to keep up the wall. Until now, I have enabled her to indefinitely delay that choice. Now that I've been awakened to how deep she was into the emotional affair, the clock is ticking as far as I am concerned. I can wait a while, but not for months. I think the best thing I can do to speed that choice is to make sure that she knows status quo is not okay. Really not okay. When I have acted normal in between rounds of fighting, disagreement, she convinces herself that things are okay. No more. She also needs to understand that I won't automatically be there for her. I have a choice to make and it may not include her. I think the more real that appears to her, the faster she will wake up. In one respect, my wife is in a tough spot. With things being tense between us, the need for support for others increases. But if she always runs to someone else for support, she won't make it back to me. It is somewhat of a leap of faith decision for her to make. In our case, the growing apart between us did occur prior to the emotional affair. That made recognition of the emotional affair more uncertain early on. We grew apart primarily due to lack of time together between work hours, kids, and no family support locally. On top of that, my stress level has been high for years, and I was not really available for conversation companionship a lot of nights. I just kept things to myself, which is damaging in itself, but I never looked elsewhere for a connection. I did not know it at the time, but my wife must have increasingly been looking to BF to fill some of the confidant role that I had sole rights to for many years. We were both quietly putting up bricks without the other realizing it. Then the big bricks started getting added to the wall when other man arrived. The discovery of the emotional affair was a wake-up call to what had been missing in the marriage and lead to a lot of insight. On my part anyway, on what we could do about it. It takes two to knock down the walls, and only one of us has been interested in that so far. The walls and windows analogy are a really clear way to explain how things should be a marriage. But she won't hear it right now. Honesty really is the biggest part of this. She may have gone down the slippery slope without fully realizing it early on, but she sure as heck has a choice on whether to lie or tell the truth. That she has chosen dishonesty and won't even admit that is the most painful part of this. A week later, well, we had a meeting with MC number 1 today. What a disaster. My wife aired her list of grievances related to the controls, restrictions, and oversight in place right now. Feels like she is being treated like less than a person. I'm her parole office, not a husband. Can't live with the lack of dignity and respect. Can't live with me believing her to be a deceitful liar. Fear of having recording devices in the house. The string of ultimatums. Do this or else she's gone, and a few other things that I can't think of at the moment. She says she did what I wanted, NC, and now we should just be moving forward. She acknowledges that this is her fault, that she did things wrong, never meant to hurt me, sorry for hurting me, etc., but offered no details on what exactly she did wrong. She also made a point to state that she didn't hide contact as I knew they were emailing and I knew they had FaceTime contact, still basically denying it was an affair. She was part angry, part emotional about the hurt she has caused, and was crying and upset about the lack of trust and respect I have for her right now. That if I think so little of her that she could be dishonest, then we've already lost everything. Whether a ploy or not, she dutifully played the part of I can't live under these circumstances. But whatever, the only restrictions I have on her devices is to disable FaceTime and mail apps. She can still get to webmail and prevent installing new apps, so she can't install Skype. I also reserve the right to check on her text messages and browsing history. Get this, the MC was totally on her side. I was accused of acting self-righteous, that the controls were over the top and more than MC had ever heard of, and that I might have a disorder which is causing the need for such control. MC also believes that the betrayer only has to reveal with whom Thea was with and who else knows. So, now I know why my wife suddenly liked the MC so much. My wife and MC would have me believe I am pushing her away, and that will be the final straw. From my perspective, I am not okay with the whole thing being swept under the rug. It is great that my wife has ended contact, so far as I know, but I am not willing to move forward until she opens up about what happened. She lied in some form or another for 1.5 years and wants me to just move forward without her offering any real acknowledgement of what happened. She has shown no remorse for her actions with other men and no real sign that she gets the damage an emotional affair cause. Am I just being stubborn on insisting that she gets it and talks about everything that happened? I am wrong to draw this line and force another ultimatum. I feel it is the least she can do to make up for the damage she has done. She should be doing everything in her power to try to make me feel safe and to try to earn back trust. If she keeps her heels dug in where they are now, things will likely be blown completely apart by the time the fog has lifted. So, I need to get through to MC number 2 and hope that she has a clue. At this point, I doubt my wife will be very willing to see someone else. Wife and I had a long talk Saturday night. It was a rational conversation for the most part, with a few moments of emotional affair monster sprinkled in. We covered a lot of things which all kind of blur together. But I'll update on what I recall. She felt like talking, so I tried to make her feel safe to speak her mind without countering all of the comments she made. My wife is considering a separation. I think the real threat of divorce really changed things for my wife. She feels like she needs to be looking at contingency plans in case things go bad. I think the threat of divorce drove home the idea that I could move on without her. And her reaction has been to feel unwanted, unloved, as opposed to being driven to work to save the marriage. It turns out after the last MC session, my wife stopped by a couple of nearby apartments to check on rates. Right now, we both have a lot of resentment and consequently don't really like each other all that much at the moment. Though she sent the NC letter, I am still unhappy with how she's behaving, not showing remorse with her actions. I think she truly feels demeaned by the martial law I implemented following NC. My wife isn't hearing from me that I really want her to stay, and she fears that things won't work out even if we try. She doubts if I will ever really be happy with her. She wonders if I want to pursue having freedom to try to see if the grass is greener elsewhere. From her side, she says she doesn't see herself ever being with someone else. The separation would be some time apart to see if we would actually miss each other. My wife has a lot of fears at the moment, afraid that she may do something that I interpret in a negative way which would result in being the final straw. Afraid that there will be more threats, consequences, such as being cut off from BF. Afraid that I won't be able to forgive her. Afraid to tell me things about the emotional affair for fear it will result in more question and investigation. Basically, she's afraid of controlling behavior on my part. At the very end of the conversation, I asked her if she truly thought she'd had an affair. To my surprise, she said yes, mostly. She admitted from the perspective of having lied and kept secrets that she did have an affair. She's not ready to admit her level of emotional connection to other men. She also is not ready to deal with the guilt, shame for having had an affair. She indicated how deep the knife goes whenever she has to admit it was an affair. In other words, if she is forced to come clean about everything, the pain from guilt will destroy her. Right now, she is not ready to be open about what happened, because she is afraid to really admit to herself what she's done. I assured her that I would be able to forgive her, but she said she wasn't sure she'd ever be able to forgive herself. After the conversation, it occurred to me how completely broken our relationship has become. It wasn't good before all of this started, and the 1.5 years of being enemies on the emotional affair has really crippled what was left. The wall between us has become so enormous that my wife has come to completely fear being open with me. It's to the point of each of wondering if we truly want to go forward together. The talk of separation was applicable even if we set aside the emotional affair. We go back to MC-1 today. My thought is that it may be helpful to continue some of the conversation we had over the weekend. Wife is willing to go to MC-2 next week. Meeting at MC-1 today went about like said a night at home. Similar topics, and wife had a similar trend of waves of sadness, crying, and a little anger. She basically loses it when it comes to speaking of hurting me for so long, and how that is contrary to everything she believes in. To me, the depth of her pain when acknowledging this speaks to what level of betrayal she is aware of internally but not ready to disclose to me. For me, I have been very unemotional in the meetings. At one point the MC asked me what I was feeling, right after my wife started getting upset, and I basically had to answer nothing. I am in agreement that separation is a bad idea. She plays it off as thinking that I don't want her and that I'll be happier without her. She has mentioned this in the past even before the emotional affair. My instinct, probably the wrong one, is to take her at her word as opposed to viewing it as a ploy to get back with other men. I find myself struggling to truly treat her as an addict. She has hidden the emotionally attached side of herself from me so well. I find it hard to recognize some of her behaviors as simply trying to manipulate me. Having a MC that sympathizes with my wife doesn't help. Do her behaviors match perfectly with all the other WS's? In other words, she's not special. She behaves like everybody else in her position, and don't believe what she tells me. There is another reason that a separation is a bad idea. My wife is correct in thinking that there is a part of me that is thinking the grass would be greener elsewhere. I have had some sense of disappointment in her for a lot of years. It is hard to get married to so young and have both people turn out the way the other expects, needs. So, a separation would likely provide me an opportunity to have some freedom, and I doubt that I would come back saying how much I miss her. A separation would very likely be the end of us. Having kids is a complicating factor. I continue to struggle with trying to convince myself that choosing my needs first over them is best. I guess I am not far enough along in the nice guy reformation to get past this point. Out of time for now. I'll post more updates in the morning. Thanks again for all of the advice and comments. I don't know about anybody else that went through this, but it is hard to keep my eyes wide open enough when trying to decipher my wife's behavior. On paper, it all sounds like a clear pattern. Face-to-face interactions add to the confusion. It is also not a quick path to trying to drastically change the way I think about the world and where my needs fit in. A quick update. I have not had good luck with VARs lately, but I did capture a 15 minutes chat with BF yesterday. My wife was moving in and out of the room, so I didn't get all of it. I believe the conversation was right after wife got home from MC appointment, where she left in tears. By the time she talked to BF, she was casual, unemotional, and seemingly unbothered by the whole thing. But I think I learned a lot more about what my wife is thinking than what she has told me directly for a long time. Here are some of the nuggets spoken from her mouth. On 2 occasions, she basically said she likes her life, her house, the community, the kids' schools, living by the beach, but just doesn't like her marriage or her husband. Interesting. She feels that she will be giving up too much of herself to put up with the things going on now, the imposing restrictions on her. She doesn't like that she has appeared weak during our conflict. To BF, she basically blamed our issues on me have a mental condition, equivalent to having a disease, and she would feel bad if she didn't at least give it a try to help me, presumably before ending things. What the hell? There was one comment I could only understand part of, but really wish I heard fully. It was something like I feel bad because I know, is hurting, but followed by 2 to 3 unintelligible words and then other man's name. Another partial comment about not wanting to screw up the holidays, perhaps delaying a further push for separation until after. I'm assuming this all still fits the pattern. My take is that she is trying to build herself up to be strong in preparation for trying to re-establish control. She doesn't like the authoritative actions I've taken and she is preparing to push back. She lies to others about the root cause of our issues so she come out of this without looking like the BS bad person. The very long period of attachment to other men has erased most of the positive things she saw in me previously. Does this sound about right? We have had some conflicting dynamics in our marriage. Functionally, and to the outside world, I am the dominant figure in making decisions, plans, purchases, projects, etc. I tend to get annoyed easily when she does something I don't like, and at times she feels like she has to walk on eggshells to avoid my disapproval. But I am starting to understand how completely she has controlled the relationship between us. I have ceded control by caretaking for her, trying to please her, being afraid of her reactions, expecting her to meet my needs if I meet hers without asking, etc. Her mood determines how smoothly things go in the relationship. Wife, she has also recognized my 180 behavior. She has observed that I am detaching from the situation and focusing on making sure I'm okay no matter the outcome. She claims that her agreement to go to NC was her commitment to work on us. But she now sees that I am not yet committing to move forward 100%. I agreed that I am riding the wave right now, waiting to decide how to move forward, and making sure that I will be okay regardless of how things unfold. So, the 180 approach has allowed me to protect myself for ongoing pain from her denial. It is helping me to view a positive outlook for myself regardless of how things pan, R or D, and allows me to start working on myself. The self-empowerment aspect is not at issue. I think it is the indifference toward my wife that is more in question. My 180 has made it clear to my wife that I am still not okay with her behavior, and it is certainly putting pressure on her. My hope is that the pressure will eventually get her to change her perspective and shed the denial. However, it is doing a good job of providing increasingly more distance between us. One way of interpreting her statement on not being able to tolerate the current environment is that she is passively trying to issue an ultimatum that I need to make things more pleasant. Or else, or perhaps, she really isn't in a place where she can tolerate things. If, in the coming weeks, she really isn't able to bring herself to deal with the issues that got her into this mess, and to be open and honest with me about what happened, then the ongoing indifference may push her to a breaking point, which, at this point, I can deal with. Right now, she seems to want a beacon of hope and encouragement to push her along in dealing with painful feelings. A few months later, during my month of indecision, it seemed like my wife got the message that I am ready to end it. Her self-defeatist attitude helped to reach the conclusion that I was going to walk away before I had reached any conclusion. She seemed to accept it as inevitable. I just don't think she is capable of considering change, on her behalf, right now no matter what I do. Filing for divorce would likely have the same effect as what I have already done, like no immediate change. Right now, I believe that she would accept the divorce before changing her perspective. But I suspect that after a few weeks, months of us being apart, she might finally have some awakening and start to accept what she's done and take responsibility. For a while, like weeks, I can live with her still being in her emotional stupor. I can give her some time and space to see if she becomes interested in working through her own issues. If she can bring herself to work on things, then healing will be easier without the stigma of divorce papers being involved. If not, then it will be time to take more drastic measures. Just to make sure I am understanding the suggested paths to take right now. Option 1. Give ultimatum that she takes responsibility for her actions and give a timeline for that to occur. Directly working on marriage issues on hold pending remorse over emotional affair. Spend time working on my own issues. Accept that there is a significant probability that she will not come through and filing for D will be the next step. Option 2. Take the high road and provide her with some form of carrot to entice her to work on resolving emotional affair and then to work on the marriage. While she should be the one doing the lifting and making the first moves, I take on that responsibility myself since she has shown no signs of having that ability. Carrot could be proceeding with working on marriage issues, trying to meet her needs, or just start trying to reattach and show affection. In other words, provide her with some comfort and reassurance of the future of our relationship. The remorse and trust rebuilding still have to occur, but the theory is that she needs the comfort there before she can do her part. The risk here is that she may ultimately not do her part and we will go through more heartache by opening back up to each other only to ultimately fail months down the road. The other risk is that I won't be able to work through the resentment of having to go this route. Given my wife's behavior, option 2 seems more likely to have a positive outcome. However, I am not ready to swallow that option. It also seems very nice guy to me. A few months later, I was struggling to decide whether to work to save the marriage or just to punt. I had been waiting to post an update once I decided what I want to pursue. I am still struggling with that choice, torn between what my gut tells me, that our marriage will be okay at best, and I will never shake the feeling of having settled and thinking that my gut feelings are probably misguided due to the dysfunctions we have had over the years. I could go on for a few pages with all that I have been contemplating on the matter. So, I did finally decide that I wanted to work to try to save the marriage. In my mind, This means each of focus on self-improvements in order to make each other more attractive and desirable partners. The plan is to also work on improving communication skills and eliminating passive-aggressive behavior. One caveat is that she still has to come clean on any details on the emotional affair and show remorse for it. She has not contacted the other man again as far as I have been able to tell, but she has never shown true remorse for it either. And kids just got back from a few weeks' visit at the in-laws' house. I hope to have the conversation by this weekend. We'll have to see if she is willing to go along with owning up to the emotional affair and doing the hard work of self-improvement, including a fair amount of weight loss on her part. For me, my progress was pretty limited while I was weighed down by the decision of whether she can be a good partner for me. Now that I have let go of that decision, I have been able to start moving forward some, making some progress on nice guy sort of things and removing the codependency. Main thing I need to do is just get all of my crap in order. Catch up on neglected tasks at home, get organized, and generally just be in control of myself. I am somewhat limited on this due to an ADHD, anxiety combo that keep me from being very efficient. I am starting to try to improve this. My comment: there is nothing for OP to save. In this long span of time, he did not work on himself. He keeps delaying it. Maybe the marriage ended for a good reason.